coffee during the intro. By the way, if you are watching this video, hoping to enjoy a fast-paced news segment, skip the yellow part. That's the best part. The intro screen, which is the Technocrat Live logo, just skip it. Yeah, it's okay. I'm not hurt. I don't know what that does to the algo. I kind of don't care. It's not, I want to reach more people, but at the same time, I don't really want to, I don't want to make it all about what Google wants. I want to make it about what you guys want and what's practical. The good thing about the Dystopia report is I keep this thing going forever like this. Like it's so low overhead. And that's the goal, is to keep this super low overhead, so kind of I don't have to stop unless I really want to, which I'm not going to. Hold on a second. Oh, my coffee's ready. Yes, which means we can start. Sorry to keep you guys waiting. Need to be caffeinated. That's where all that energy comes from. No, it's not natural enthusiasm. It's chemistry. I should drink my insecticide. I encourage you to get a drink and drink with me. Whatever it is you feel like drinking. It does not need to be insecticide. It does not need to be caffeinated. It can be a downer. It can be an upper. It can be a speedball. It can be completely neutral and simply hydration. All right. I think I'm good. There we go. All right, I think I'm okay, you guys ready? Let's do this. Let's see. Stream's current bit rate is lower than recommended. Okay, so I'm just going to take a screenshot of that. I'm going to complain about the bit rate, but it's not saying I can't continue, so I'm going to. All right. Stream bit rate. I will up the stream bit rate next time. Okay. Kind of doesn't matter at this quality camera, but it'll matter soon. Okay, let's get started, folks. Sorry if I was a little late. I actually was kind of racing here. All right. Hello and welcome to the Technocrat Live. I'm your host, Matthew Newhall, and tonight you may hear some differences in the studio. Please let me know if that's the case. It should sound a little bit better. I've been working on the acoustics in here. I will continue to try to improve the technicals of the show. If you look at the intro image, the thumbnail, you'll see what I'm talking about. I've got actually some sound deadening stuff in here, which is a little more complicated than it seems. I had to play around a bit to figure out where I was getting the worst reflections, and I think I've done it. But in case, let me know if you can hear any kind of echo, because there shouldn't be. I have no echo effects on, so any echo you hear in my voice or on the air is the natural cadence of the walls in this studio. I think I'm using cadence right. Okay, anyway, hi, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. In case you didn't notice, I also got a new Viking mug. It was time. I needed a Viking themed mug, and I have it. I had a ton of great great mug suggestions and even a couple of donations, but I had to go Viking. At some point, I would really like to fix the mug that Laura and Mark gave to me, that they picked up at the what was it? Not the murder? No, it wasn't MurderCon. It was the HorrorCon, at the HorrorCon. But it is leaking right now, so I don't want to use it because I actually want to drink all of my coffee. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enough with the minutia. This is a tech ethics show. I do a news segment at the beginning of every single show called the Dystopia Report, which I love to do. But it is also an interview show. I will be getting interviews going soon. You can't see it, but also one of the many upgrades to this room, you can see it in the photo. Actually, you can see it in the photo. You may notice that one of the tables is a little bit smaller. The tables now fit better for having a panel in this size room. So I think there'll be more room for panelists while still having sufficient table. I hope that interests you. I'd love to get like a Cards Against Humanity game going. Let me know what you think of that. Get a few of you in here to play cards. Just because it's just so dark and twisted, and well, after that, everything's fair game. I do a little bit of editorializing in the news, so fair warning. I do cover a vaguely political issue, but in an extremely non-political way. In fact, I go out of my way to be non-political on it, but it is a relevant issue for most people one way or the other. So listen in for that. It's actually in the science section towards the end. Again, thank you so much for watching tonight, and without further ado, let's get into the Dystopia report. Hey, Ariella, thanks for tuning in. What? I appreciate the consistent viewership, and I love you guys. Thank you for being part of this. I love chatting with you guys. By the way, if you want to help the show out, please give it a like, a love, share it, subscribe if you're not subscribed for some strange reason, and also comment. The main thing I want you to do is to actually tune in at the time we do it live. I'm completely fine with time shifting. That's fine. I do it all the time. I usually don't watch live videos. I get it if you don't. But if you do and you interact with me, that makes it even better because you can actually catch me making a stupid mistake or contribute something that I couldn't possibly have imagined. And by the way, Ariella, thanks for the contributions. One of the stories was contributed by you, and I appreciate that. All right. All right. So first, we're going to start with tech. Well, let me put my my Coke bottle glasses on. No, they're not Coke bottles. They're not too bad. Okay. So without getting too far off. Okay. So if you get a call from a number and you're not certain, you know who is on the other end. You do not want to affirm anything they're saying without using strange euphemisms like, oh yeah, I got that, or I hear you, man, or something like that. There apparently is a phone scam going around, and this is a lot of mainstream news sources are picking this up, so I think this is true, where someone will call up. Basically, it's a sort of attack where they're doing voice recording of your voice to use your voice print to confirm other services. So, you know, every company in the world now is under stress to be two-factor or more, both for legal reasons and compliance reasons. And one of the factors can be your voice print. And usually what you have to say when you're giving them your voice print is you have to say yes. And that's it, just the word yes. Well, when someone calls you up out of the blue and says, can you hear me? And you say yes, they just recorded your voice print. And now they can break into your various services. This is actually a pretty simple but yet sophisticated attack. So, yeah, more dumb biometrics. Don't do biometrics. Don't do them. Because once you lose your biometric identity, it's gone forever. And you can bet it's going to be a while before all these organizations catch up and realize that that biometric is tainted for a meaningful number of their clients, customers, peers, users, whatever. So, yeah. So you're... just don't do it. This is actually, I picked this story up from a couple of sources, including Fox News. But here's the interesting thing. I went and verified it with FCC.gov. Yeah, FCC.gov has had something up on their site since 2017. So this has been going on since 2017, which puts it in the news to me category. But apparently it is getting really bad out there. There's quite a rash of it. So yeah, if you get a call from Scam Likely and you answer the word yes at any point, you may have just hacked yourself. Don't do that. And companies and IT geeks out there, do not use biometrics. Make people discipline themselves and learn password foo. You need to learn password foo. You need to learn how to make a good password and remember it and then change it to a new good password periodically. It is the only thing where you can have good security and it can't be taken from you permanently. Biometrics can be taken from you permanently. Don't do it. Okay. Anyway, you've been warned. Next tech story is Meta's business model. Yeah. So there was an unsealed court document. It turns out that Facebook was knowingly turning children into internet or specifically Meta addicts. Very brutal revelation that were willfully targeting children. This is as sad as it is. This is one of the good things about marketing is reversibility, and this is something that we're losing with things like the YouTube algorithm. It's out there churning away, saying, "Oh, I see that this topic is popular. I'm going to go." I'm going to use some convoluted logic that a human would never follow to determine what video to show you next to keep you addicted. So while the meeting that decided to make the algorithm more addictive is something that can be submitted in a court and released to the public like this, the logic of the AI and who it was targeting may not ever be known. So thank goodness at least that was actually said out loud in a meeting and it got out there in public. So, among other things, they were steering kids, including preteens, to anorexia-related content in a negative way, not in a supportive sort of way. And this jives with another story that was also leaked from Facebook. But this is an unsealed court document, so you could argue that leak was so on the credibility. This is the court. This is fact, and any way you twist it, or someone's perjuring themselves. So it was part of a May 2020 presentation within Facebook, not for the public, called Teen Fundamentals. Yeah, so apparently they were targeting the attributes of teenagers they were targeting specifically are novelty and reward, the reward system that children use, like feeling good because they've been affirmed by an adult that has, or another kid, that has said, "Oh, you did it right." So, I got another. Do you expect anything else from Meta? No, and actually, I don't expect anything else from any tech company. And it's not that tech companies are inherently evil. I think a lot of geeks are actually pretty moral, although some of them do get tunnel vision and want to complete their task and show how talented they are above looking out for the needs of their fellow humans sometimes. But that aside, I think if you get them talking, if you get any geek talking, they'll probably be one of the most moral people you'll meet. But a person is moral, a crowd is madness, and a company is a crowd. I'm sorry, it's just the way it works. I'm not mad about that. I'm not even saying that companies aren't worthwhile, but there are prices to be paid, and trusting them, not being able to trust them, is one of those prices. Okay, so hold on a second. I might have a message here. Oh, wait, hold on a second. I'm going to check my, somebody's contacting me, I think, about, no, it's okay. All right. Now, on to AI. So, you thought fake content is scary. Holy cow, AI is really getting out of control. This show is all about science gone wrong, and even though this is an AI story, this is really a science story. But you thought fake content is scary, like completely fabricated deep fakes on video and audio, and forget about like writing whole ghost books with ghost writers that don't actually exist, that have the wrong data in them. Bad data, bad content is bad enough, but when it's science, there's another level it can be bad, which is bad source data. This is something that seems to be happening. We just had Nature.com published a story, so this could have been in the science section as well. Someone, to prove a point, intentionally generated fake genetic data to prove the reverse of what's known to be solid science as far as which of two treatments for for cornea transplants was better. Which was more effective, had less side effects, had less long-term consequences. This is a known quantity. We know what the answer is. And they tried to create a fake genetic pool of sample data, of genome sequencing, to get the result they wanted that they knew was wrong, and they used AI to do it. Well, guess what? It worked like a charm. The AI generated data included 160 male and 140 female participants, and it was about 2 to 1. It was about 2 to 1 naturally in one direction for one treatment, and it went 2 to 1 in the other direction for the other treatment, based on the genetic data that the AI fabricated. And unless you're really good with genetics, and there are geneticists out there who might catch this, but I have a story from one of my labs, and I'm going to de-identify it because I don't necessarily want to make anyone look bad, although they came clean about their error. So were they to come forward, it won't be that much of a stretch to know who I was talking about. But I actually work with a scientist in one of my labs. They had an intern working with them, and they were incorrectly post-processing wetware data. So this is data straight from a sequencer. This is actual genetic material being sequenced and being input into a genetic database. And one of the post-processing steps by this intern was just wrong. It just didn't, it completely skewed the data in a negative way. And some of the data they had to go back and reprocess some of the data. The important point of this story is, first of all, we had to build a compute cluster just to do that, aside tangentially to their normal workload where they had a compute cluster for that. But on top of that, it took several months to reprocess that data. So that gives you an idea of the costs involved. I mean, think about the electricity of high-end servers cranking away for several months. So this is, and the cost of that intern, and the lost time, and the credibility problems, all of that. Hopefully the credibility problems were resolved when they altered the data and explained what was going on. But and this was an honest mistake. I mean, I don't think anybody was this wasn't like AI generating fake data. But when they did all that, it took them, before they did all that, it took them about 2 years before they found the problem. It was a little less than 2 years. This was going on for almost 2 years, and then there was a gap of time, and then they found it. What? Holy cow. And I assume it was a geneticist who went, this isn't right, and noticed it. But it took them 2 years to notice. It is entirely possible that if you were to put up fake data up with your fake algorithms and your fake science, that it is going to stand for quite a while before somebody identifies it. So next time you're like, oh, science is like lockstep, a few months and we know exactly what's going on. Guess again. There's a reason for that 8-year delay, because it can take 8 years to sort things out. I'm not kidding. And I'm not saying that's acceptable. You can say that's way too long, and I agree. But the way the process is right now, that is the time that it takes for it to be safe. So time to kind of get real about that, Anyway, so this is nature.com if you want to read more. I did not, because it's the AI section, I didn't put a source, but it was credible scientific sources. Okay, onward. So there's another AI story. This was all over the news the past 2 weeks. Interestingly, I skipped Turkey Week, and Turkey Week was a very slow news week. So if I had tried to do a show on Thanksgiving, the reward wouldn't have been that great. So I'm kind of glad that I skipped the Thanksgiving show like I've done over the years. I actually considered doing it, but there was nothing to talk about except for this story. This story was all over Thanksgiving and kind of brilliant because they got what they wanted, maybe, depending on what they were after. So OpenAI, which is the creators of ChatGPT and the leader in the field of AI, at least discussion-wise and popularity-wise, and arguably code-wise, they fired their CEO. Yeah, they fired their CEO, and then they got the board. So the way corporations work is you have a CEO and they have a board that oversees the CEO and votes on some decisions, and then you get the shareholders who in turn vote for the board and or the CEO. But typically the board can remove a CEO if they think they're doing a bad job. Well, they removed the CEO of OpenAI, and they got blasted. Over 500 employees in OpenAI said that the board made completely the wrong decision, and they shouldn't have done that. And check this out. So they said they would quit. They threatened to permanently boycott the whole company, and then the board rehired him back. And then they changed the board members. So there was a major, major corporate shakeup inside of OpenAI. This is around some ethics questions. There are like 100 different versions of what happened inside the company. If this interests you, I would say go read it. But it's gonna read like watching the paint dry. Like my eyes started to roll back because I couldn't tell what was true. But these are the things that I can tell are true. The fact that there's so much fog of war makes me wonder if this was maybe some sort of marketing stunt and somewhat orchestrated to get OpenAI back in the news, because of course its shares, while they did poorly at first, responded well later. And of course, if you know all of this is happening, well, it's super illegal. It's insider trading big time, but you could always pick up shares when it dumps and then sell when it goes really high. It could have been a dump and pump. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, but anyway, be wary. But that did happen. It may have been what it appeared to be. I'm not sure. All right, so that's it for the AI section. Let me get into tech government. Do you hate the Digital Millennium Copyright Act? I do. I particularly hate the part about the Digital Millennium Copyright Act that is DMCA takedowns, where somebody can come along and say, oh, they're violating my copyright, and make a claim with a provider of some sort, an ISP, a social media service provider, whatever it is, and say, yeah, they're stealing my copyright, and they take your stuff down. And they have to, in 2 weeks, produce a legal document saying that, oh yeah, here's what we're going to do legally now. So in other words, it's a preemptive, pre-law kind of strike that you can take against someone. And the truth is, the media companies aren't equipped. They can't handle this. They can't handle all the DMCA takedowns. So even the honest ones. And of course, Congress had no way to know what this was going to cost media companies, social media companies or tech companies. They didn't care if they drove them out of business. They just were responding to public, or actually, I think in this case, corporate pressure, right? Specifically from the copyright industry. And now this was back when the RIA and MPAA were going after everybody and their uncle in the days of Napster when this law was passed. And so this actually got a program called Downloader. So it was on the App Store on Google Apps, and you know what that Downloader is it's a web browser. Their DMCA takedown was the fact that it downloaded copyrighted material, but it's a fucking web browser. You can't display pages unless you download them. What the f is this? And of course, when it came time for them to actually make a legal filing, because of course the author immediately contested, they couldn't produce anything. So this guy's app was down for 3 weeks because he got DMCA takedown. It's like getting swatted. The cops break your door down, kill your dog, yell at you, and you're just like, really? It's like it's a denial of service attack against maybe a competitor did this. Maybe somebody didn't like the fact that he didn't want to slip some back door in there for them. I mean, and I'm not, the implication might be that it's the United States government, but it could have been a foreign government. They were like, why didn't you put this back door in there? If we're going to attack you unless you do what we say. He could be being extorted. There are 450-something countries on this planet. Any one of them could have extorted this guy. And Google is their minion, unwittingly or wittingly. What? Anyway. So, this is the problem with the law. I'm going to read a couple of quotes for you. If you're not familiar with this, it'll maybe make this a little fresher if this is an old topic for you. You would think that Google would at least verify that the takedown request is actually making a plausible claim. And that's from the author, Saba. And here's another quote. Quote, "The law relies on the honesty and good faith of copyright claimants, Google. So the representative from Google said that. And, nothing wrong with what they said. They're right. Google isn't really the problem. The problem is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It has to go. It's garbage. It makes the Patriot Act look like legitimate freedomware. It's crazy. I don't understand what we're doing. Anyway, so not happy with that. Ars Technica, if you want to read more. That's it for tech government. Let's get on to science government. So this is a new topic that I haven't done before. And I'm going to editorialize a little bit. And if you're either far on the right or far on the left, this is probably going to piss you off. And that's okay, because it needs to be covered. And the only thing I ask is you let me get to the end, and then you can lambast me all you want. Okay, so I'm going to kind of read from it roughly because I don't want to mess it up. I thought carefully about what I wanted to say. Apparently, there was a study done, and they were looking at the carbon emissions of the richest 1% compared to the rest of the population. So the richest 1% of the population of the planet, this is a global study, pollute more than the poorest 2/3 of the entire planet. So 1% of the people, the wealthy and really wealthy, are polluting more than the 2/3 of the rest of the planet. So what is going on here? And of course, some of this is definitely Randian economics and Reaganomics. Something I've always had. I know I don't say names, but the name of the economics is not much I can do there. Trickle down theory, that kind of stuff. I'm not attributing it to modern politicians. You can go look that up. But the idea is that if you give free rein to entrepreneurs, that they will spend their money wisely, and that is just not what the numbers are showing here. So I want to be clear. I'm actually pretty skeptical of some of the self-referential math models of climate change models. I actually have a problem with them, and there's another story right after this one where it shows how that kind of self-referential data regurgitating can go wrong, right? Because the thing is, it's like leverage. You're basically magnifying errors. And so, there's been a lot of predictions of doom and gloom that have not happened, and I think part of it is that. And when you look back on that, you kind of go, okay, well, now that makes sense. It doesn't mean that there isn't a threat, but the threat was overstated because, maybe the threat was an order of magnitude smaller, but it was multiplied by the fact that it was self-referential. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think there is a model that accurately models things that's going on. At least I haven't understood it. It is a very complicated science. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means I don't understand it. I admit I don't understand it. I don't know everything. So that said, if regardless of whether you're in the I'm annoyed by climate change predictions and laws and consider it just a tax camp, or you're in the planet is dying and the coasts are about to flood and we're all about to die, or at least lose a lot of money in the global GDP camp, you got a problem. That this 1% of people are really sucking down all the wealth from everyone. I mean, it's crazy. The politicians, keep trying to change consumer behavior. Consumers are not that 1%. Most of them are not, right? And also, if you're one of the people advocating for a better climate and, less meddling in the Earth's ultimate direction, stop blocking roadways. That's just the dude getting to work. He's not part of that 1%. Most likely, he's part of that 2/3, or the part in the middle that's not responsible for this, right? The real question is, why are the politicians going after the people and taxing the people and changing the behavior of the people that aren't really doing it? And of course, the answer is because this isn't really about saving the planet. This is about political control, right? And that is actually backing that up. And it's an intentional distraction. I really think that a lot of this is an intentional distraction. Doesn't mean that it's not real, right? You have science, and then you have politicians wearing lab coats pretending to be scientists, science or seance. their seance isn't teaching you anything. They're just giving you headlines and you're repeating them. And I mean, I've seen the math. It's really hard. Sure, if you're a master's level or a PhD level mathematician, if you're a master's or PhD level meteorologist or environmental scientist, and you want to discuss this stuff, great. But people are way too knee-jerk. I mean, the one time I had an environmental scientist on the show, he wouldn't talk about it because he's afraid of people who overreact to this stuff. So, which is really disappointing. Anyway, so this is so important to everything I'm covering. I'm tired of being lectured by Greens that don't prioritize the disparity of wealth. The disparity of wealth is the problem. You're gonna cancel your order of your Gulfstream 6.5. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruin that for you. But yeah, if you're flying a jet around, you're probably part of the problem. Fair enough. You would definitely, I think that would put you squarely in the 1%, no matter how secret your bunker or how bunkery your bunker is. Yes, and I mean, exactly. I'm tired of being lectured by Greens that don't prioritize the disparity of wealth. I mean, especially because that's typically a very left position. Guys, the disparity of wealth is a huge problem. And not only is it a huge problem socially and ethically, it's a problem for the planet. Based on what you think is true, this is the problem, by a long shot. They're responsible for most of this. So the problem really is the economy of scale. The economy of scale is a derivative right, a derivative human right. I've talked before about Civ Gene on the show. Of course, I was going to go to Civ Gene because that's where I get a lot of my core ethics and I get my idea of what human rights should be, because when you look at the differences between human and animal behavior, it's very easy to, in turn, derive human rights from the unique human behaviors. That's the idea behind my kind of human rights complex. And one of the human rights is economy of scale, which is one of the things that allows these 1% rich folks to act so egregiously, because they get a huge benefit from the economy of scale, because we set up the laws to do that, because we want to encourage them to do legitimate invention. But the problem with that is it's a derivative right, and it typically ends up stomping on other more core rights, right? Economy of scale is a complex right. It's derived from other rights. It's not, economy of scale doesn't have any comparison in the animal community, not really. When you compare it, though, you do have stuff like property, currency, money, investment. These are all things that are core rights, that are behaviors that set people apart from animals. And you need those things to build the economy of scale. So you have to protect those things first, because without them, you don't get real, healthy, useful economy of scale. You kind of get this trickle-down garbage, And this is, and Civ Gene is new, and applying it to economics and to the social structure is also very new. So I'm not saying that I'm certain this is the way it goes, but I sure have not heard a better explanation of what's happening here. We have to stop runaway conditions of any sort in society. Inherently, a runaway condition is out of control. And I mean, if you're a lot of geeks on the show, a lot of technocrats, you understand what thermal runaway is. That's just a different kind of runaway. Any kind of runaway condition is bad. Economy of scale can run away. If you're in social media or media, you understand the network effect. The network effect is a runaway condition. Runaway conditions are bad for society because if nothing else, they can step on justice, and justice is a right. So, and that's a core right. That's something that people do differently than the entire animal kingdom. So, anyway, so the stories on Washington Post really earth-shattering stuff here. I mean, next time if a politician pulls up on a plane and complains about climate change, that is a serious hypocrite right there. And because they're now, I'm not talking about the guy that's actually just pulling his salary down and maybe has a few bucks in stocks. I'm talking about the 5 to 10 million plus club, especially if they didn't have that money when they went to Congress in the first place. Okay, so WashingtonPost.com if you want to read more. Thanks, Jim, for that story. Really, really good. I appreciate it. Maybe it didn't go where you thought I'd go with it, but that makes it even better, right? Unexpected use of components. All right, so on to science. So, wow, I really thought I'd get some blowback from that. But, maybe I'm going to start going into more controversial topics because, I mean, you guys have got to hear my what I have to say about genetic anthropology and human sex behavior and those effects on humanity and how we do romance and dating and marriage and all that and children and all that stuff. Wow, holy cow! I've actually thought about doing a separate show, but I can do it on the show. Let me know what you think. If you think I should do a separate show for CivG, or if I should just figure out a segment to fold it into this one. I mean, it definitely makes for easy question writing when I have guests on. And by the way, guests will be back soon. So if you missed that, don't worry. It's coming back real soon now. I'm just working on the technicals, like I said. All right. So science. So this is from Assorted Contributors. The DeepMind AI has now outperformed current supercomputer-based algorithms. So there's a few core algorithms that the weather services use to predict storms and hurricanes and the like, and predict where they're going to fall and what the weather patterns are going to be. And they can usually are pretty accurate up to a week out. I do recall a time in my life when the weather was a little less accurate than it is now. So it has improved marginally. So the way that they basically have improved the weather prediction, it's usually pretty accurate short term, like a few hours to maybe a day. It's pretty darn accurate. But once you get out to about a week, it starts getting really chaotic and you don't really know what's going to happen. One of the reasons that weather forecasts go out about a week. It isn't just the randomness and trying to calculate more and more. If your base predictions are more accurate, you can predict out further. So the fact that we've only gone from about 5 days to about 10 days in my lifetime tells you that it hasn't really improved that much. So the way they've been improving it is they're using the same variations and the same algorithms. And what they're doing is they're actually plowing just huge amounts of data, many, many, many data points from many, many weather stations, getting wind speed at a granularity that they couldn't get before, getting temperature data at a granularity they couldn't get before, ocean direction, ocean temperature, and way more satellites getting way more data and feeding it back into. And they usually plug all this into a massive supercomputer. In fact, no separate show. Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for the feedback. I don't want a separate show either. I want to, maybe I'll do little blurbs here and there, but right now I can barely keep this going for a week. So every week. So I want to get the interviews going, and then I'd consider additional episodes of this show. Anyway, so so they that's what they've been doing. They've basically been throwing horsepower at this, and now the deepfake AI comes and figures out an algorithm. Which, again, the way machine learning works is we write an algorithm that writes other algorithms. We generate a neural net that can figure out any problem, or at least any linguistic problem, or in this case, it's a weather problem, so any weather problem. And the neural net does some algorithmic magic that we don't understand, and then it in turn says, oh, this is what the weather is going to be. And it was way more accurate than any of the mainstream models. So some of our assumptions in the weather models are definitely wrong, right? The AI, because the AI is actually using less data. Remember, the weather model is running on a supercomputer. This AI could be run on a desktop. Just a single desktop, not a serverized desktop, just a desktop, right? With way less data and be significantly more accurate. So something's wrong in those algorithms. And this is a huge development because now you kind of have a test case and you have something to test against. So I'm really psyched about this. Really good, definitely hard science here. The real problem is that, when you include massive amounts of data, but then you reprocess it And one of the ways you could reprocess data is using averages. And all those models use averages, which is essentially just reprocessed data. And that was what I was complaining about with the climate change algorithms. They definitely have feedback algorithms in the climate change models. And that methodology, particularly this is the same topic. This is weather. So it's like 60% of climate is weather. And because, it's the entrance and the exit of heat into the system, the effects, the translucent and opaque effects of vaporized water in the system. Even if you take out the invisible gases out of the equation, holy cow, it's a big part of the equation. And this is wrong. So that's just some proof that's why I felt really comfortable talking about that other thing. If you don't like what I'm saying about this, go to wired.com and argue with them. Also, science.org has the study as it was published. So go argue with science.org. That should be fun. And if you do it effectively and you write a journal that, accurately rebuts this, of course, you'd have to get access to the algorithm. But if you wrote a journal that accurately rebutted this, then you'd be doing peer review in real science. And that'll go around a few times, and 8 years later, we'll have the answer. We'll all agree on the answer. So that's how that works. I got a message here. I wonder if this is related to it might be related to the show. Hold a second. There we go. Okay. Anyway, so just some people goofing around. Okay, so last one. This is a single author. This is actually an editorial, but this is something that's going to be really hard to do with science. And I'm not saying that it's technically hard to do. Someone who's very famous for trying to do this type of thing, this type of science story, Aaron Swartz, was actually arrested by the FBI for copyright infringement and accessing computer systems that he was not allowed to access, was facing a bunch of charges and killed himself in jail. And there's actually an Aaron Swartz Day for this guy because he was trying to normalize science journals and how they functioned, which is really scary. But this is another author tackling the same topic. So the Science Journal retraction system absolutely sucks. And for people who've been paying attention, you knew this already. But if you didn't know this, putting a paper out there and then retracting it doesn't mean your paper isn't going to be cited. In fact, the author comes up with a really good analogy. A single retracted paper can be cited by hundreds of papers. He calls it an infectious effect, right? If you put a paper out there and it's wrong, but it's convenient for other scientists and they don't really dig into the paper, in other words, contact a scientist from the papers that they're citing, which is not necessarily required, they may not know that that paper has been retracted, right? They will publish retractions on some sites, but some other sites archive this stuff. So, it's very easy and happens often, as per the hundreds of science papers referencing a retracted story, a retracted science journal entry. And, it's really bad. And what's worse is, you get organizations like social media companies like Google or other search engines refusing to cite any non-academic sources. So in other words, if you don't publish it in a journal, it doesn't take it seriously. So you could put up the most credible webpage involving the most credible scientists in the world, and I've seen this happen recently, and you get ignored because it's not in journal format. And the problem is the journal format itself is broken. So there's no way to retract things that are wrong. It's just completely insane. And it's been insane for a while, but I'm really excited because people are actually talking about how broken it is. So, and of course, one of the risks here is that now is automation for literature, thanks to AI, starts increasing and speeding up. The ability to come up with garbage journal entries and get them approved is only going to accelerate. We need to fix this, or science itself is going to break badly. You know, we are well past the age of the Renaissance man. You know, a lot of those big discoveries that really changed our lives in the early 1900s were following the age of the last Renaissance man. So all those people and women, all those people who knew all the things that were true about science at one point in their lifetime were the ones making these major discoveries. Retraction didn't matter to them, because they had the entire system of knowledge in their head and could parse it. You can't do that anymore. So we need this system to work. It's all we've got to make wholesale progress within not bury important discoveries. So anyway, we really need people to become credible again due to association with other credible people. That's the way that Google originally worked. And they got so far away from that because people were figuring out how to game that system. And it is gameable, but it's actually less gameable than the system they put in place to replace it. They need to admit they made a mistake and walk backwards, because they're actually endangering humanity's progress a little bit, in the form of science. And if you don't believe me, go to science.org and check this out. Anyway, a published paper means almost nothing without a quick and reliable way to check retractions. And that is it for the science section. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I enjoyed doing it. I really like talking with you guys and interacting. I really like all the feedback, and I appreciate my viewers. I'm still picking up viewers. The show is very very low key, but I'm going to keep doing it. As long as you guys keep tuning in and keep watching, I'm not going to give up, because I know there isn't something comparable out there. Nobody's really doing tech and science ethics. I mean, I'm really doing tech ethics, but science is part of it. You can't do tech without science. So that's it for Dystopia Report. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys. I'd love it if you have a private line to me, or you can just email me at TTL at the Technocrat Live at gmail.com, or TTL at thetechnocratlive.com, depending on whether you want to game inside the system or outside of it. If you have any suggestions for the show and for guests, I am going to start with guests soon. I have been prepping the studio for it. Again, check out the thumbnail if you want to get an idea where I am with the studio. There's more to do. Of course, there's going to be other things coming to you. I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to steal that energy from myself. I'm actually making progress, so I want to keep going. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this show, please give it a like. Give it a love. Let other people know that this is something that we need. Even if you don't think I'm doing it well, find someone that is doing it well and tell me about it, because maybe I'll just watch that. I'm kind of trying to fill the gap that I see is definitely missing. Also, I want to be entertaining. I want to be fun when I have guests on. We kind of go to wherever the guest wants to go, but you kind of get a taste of where I'm going from my perspective. Definitely going to get more into the SivGene stuff. There's some controversial stuff coming up, because you know what? People are pretty controversial. Okay. And Ariella, thanks for the private message, and I will talk to you offline about that. We'll come back around to it. Okay, so thanks again. Like, love, subscribe. Please tell other people, and choose wisely. Choose to share. Good night, everyone. Dramatic glasses remove. Okay, stop streaming. Bye, everyone.